Hello and welcome to another episode of the Now Showing podcast. This is a show where I take a look at recent movies that I have seen and give you quick hit reviews. I know it's been a little while, but it's a holiday Monday, so it's time to dive in. Our first film is Alice Darling. This sometimes we lose ourselves when we feel pressured to change for another person. If that person is particularly controlling, it can magnify how much of ourselves we lose. That's a central focus of Alice Darling, a new feature film that opens wide on Friday if you live near an AMC theater. The film showed at TIFF and had a limited release in late 2022, but now it's expanding to start the new year. In it, Anna Kendrick plays Alice. She was once a strong and confident woman, but her friends have noticed a change since she started a relationship with Simon. In fact, Alice can't even be honest with Simon when she heads out for a girls' weekend with her best friends, Tess and Sophie. On that weekend, her friends are struck by the changes in Alice, who seems sharp and distant. It's only after some prodding and cutting her off from her phone that they begin to realize just how impacted she's become by her relationship. When Simon tracks them down and makes an unannounced visit at their remote cabin getaway, things come to a head quickly. Will Alice give in or will she take her life back? That's the central question here. Kendrick is a versatile and strong performer. We tend to think of her from her more bubbly roles, like leading in Pitch Perfect or voicing Poppy in Trolls. But she has some tremendous range. That led to her getting an Academy Award nomination for Up in the Air, one of my favorite movies. And it's on display again here. She dives into this layered and tortured performance with some emotional showcases and scenes in later stages of the film that really resonated with me. The narrative is handled well by director Mary Nye, who builds the tension throughout a couple of crucial sequences, including a real climactic sequence that brings everything together. Overall, this is a rich and emotional journey. It's buoyed by a great lead performance, and it's definitely worth checking out. Again, Alice Darling is opening Friday, January 20th in AMC theaters. I'm giving it 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next up is the Hulu original film, The Drop. This one is meant to be a comedy, and I say meant to be a comedy because it doesn't exactly work. It's based on anyone's worst nightmare. You're handed a friend's baby, then inexplicably it slips through your hands and hits the ground. That's the basic setup for this film, which centers on a married couple who are contemplating trying to have a baby of their own. They hit the road for a destination wedding with several other couple friends. Just after landing, Lex, played by Anna Conkle, is handed the baby and in the blink of an eye drops her. The baby's rushed to the hospital and her husband, Manny, played by Jermaine Fowler, tries to comfort her, but the incident kicks off a weekend of reflection and introspection as the couple's forced to come to grips with whether or not they're ready to be parents and what they want in a relationship and how they move forward. That description probably doesn't do the film justice. It wants to take this ultra seriously in order to mine the comedy. It's a weird concept, and the rest of the narrative, which seems to include Lex having been intimate with many of the other people on the trip, including one half of the lesbian couple who are getting married and asking her to write their vows, just adds to the weird comedy vibes here. This is the kind of film that will either work for you or run straight off the tracks into a ditch. I was very much in the latter category. It did not work for me at all. I didn't buy into the characters. I didn't appreciate the attempts at humor. It was a disaster and not the kind the film tries to make light of. I feel like this one can be safely avoided, but if you must, it is now available on Hulu. I gave it half a star out of 5, which probably gives you an indication of how I felt about it. Final film up today is Sick, the original horror film from Blumhouse Productions that dropped on Peacock Friday, which was Friday the 13th. 27 years ago, Kevin Williamson helped revolutionize horror films with Scream. That's a franchise that spanned 5 films in more than 25 years, and now he's back with a new film that I felt borrowed liberally from the formula of his classic and adds a COVID wrinkle. That film is Sick. It debuted Friday on Peacock, as I mentioned, and if you watch the opening sequence, you'll very much feel the Scream vibes. It even updates it into the texting sphere, which is something that the most recent Scream film also leaned into with its opening sequence. This one is also very much of the moment, or rather a recent moment. It's set in April of 2020 at the height of COVID, focusing on those who should be masking and in quarantine. Instead, they're bending the rules and being stalked by a killer. This one follows the COVID theme all the way through with a twist ending that had me letting out a sigh and not a laugh or a good reaction. The performances are fine, and director Don Hymas makes the most of what he's given. The fact it's as interesting as it is serves as a credit to the way he put it all together. It's only about an hour and 20 minutes, but sometimes it felt a little bit longer. It feels like this is a film where someone wanted to do a Scream revival and thought, hey, let's just do it about COVID. Sadly, that person was Kevin Williamson, who it seemed like was stealing from himself. It's the story that's the failure here. It's limp and it just doesn't quite work. This film is streaming on Peacock. Again, it's a short commitment, and if you're looking for horror films, you could do worse, I guess, even especially on Peacock. But I gave this one 2 out of 5 stars. Well, that'll do it for me today. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you soon with more movie takes.